Hey, what's up, everybody? And welcome back to the Church of Jesus Christ, the only real deal Holyfield in God's green universe. A green universe, eh? Well, what this is all about here, remember, what I'm preaching has been revealed to me over a course of a long time. Like at least 20 years. Ever since I was about 17, something like that, years old, I've been on the quest. Because I didn't know what to do at a high school either. And I was just a bum. So the quest for truth was the only way. School costs too much money, and reading is for free. Hooray! So the only two books worth a reading is, well, you'll find that later on in life. Anyways, you got to put the Mr. Mansion down a little bit and focus on the real things. So this teaching might not be for everybody. I understand that this is a very complicated thing of God and His only begotten Son and His transcendental kingdom that's been preached for about 2,000 years. Things can be pretty complicated these days, eh? But some of us understand some of these things, because the Lord throws us up in the mix there with all the wolves, and we have no choice but to either get devoured or start killing them ourselves. Have you been fighting wolves since you've been sucking out your mother's teat? And that's how it is in the game, dog. You're just thrown in there amongst the wolves in life. And the Lord's just like, all right, all that are heavy laden and burdened from being out in the material forest for too long, you come back home to me. So that's what the teaching is. If you're really sick and tired of material creation, you don't want to be here anymore, God is the only answer, because that's your soul getting tired of the flesh. And you'll learn about that in transcendental consciousness, and especially in the stories of Bhagavad Gita as well too, when kings get sick and tired of taking advantage of it, and they just cast off the flesh and seek transcendental consciousness, and they start worshiping the supreme personality of Godhead. Anyways, so now people can't do those sacrifices, right? Because it causes a lot of self-renunciation. So I asked, if I would, Elon Musk said this pretty simply in one of his interviews, actually. He's like, oh, I don't believe that there's a creator that puts people here and puts people there. You know what I mean? It's just like, man, it's that easy, really. He outlined God's religion very simply. He's like, I don't believe, well, that's pretty much, and it's just that simple, though, but he's so smart, you see. Man is a genius. And he can't believe in coming and being reborn as a child in spirit. No, he's way smarter than God. So that's basically what God's trying to tell you in his religion. If you don't believe, you're going to hell. If you do believe, there's beautiful gardens with rivers that flow beneath. That's basically what the Quran is about. The judgment day of the Lord. If you don't believe, God has no problem throwing in you hell. Doesn't matter if you're Elon Musk, what are you going to give God? That's the thing too about transcendental consciousness, plucking out the death in your mind, because you're all going to die one day. And what's the price? What are you going to pay? How much is it worth? If I were to tell these people that you could take that death seat out of your consciousness, how much is Elon Musk willing to pay, dog? Well, he could see that example in the Bible. Give up all and follow me. And will he give up all and follow me? That's when he makes the parable afterwards, because that guy didn't. He was just basically Elon Musk. I have too much money. I got way too much stuff in this world. I'm way smarter than you, anyways. And then that's when you can't be a follower. And that's when the master gave the needle. The camel can go through an eye of a needle. Way easier for camels to travel, to do things that are very impossible, than it will be for rich men to go to heaven, because they believed in their own riches. They can't give those things up. It's just his survival, his whole ego, not even his ego, but his eye identification is just fornicated with this world. And that's what this script is about too. I don't even know if I did my send-off here, but lifting up the Son of God, verse 5, 2 Corinthians 13. Test yourselves, whether see you have the faith, examine yourselves. Perhaps you yourselves do not realize that Jesus Christ is in you unless you failed. But, we could have $1 trillion and still fail. What does $1 trillion matter when the judgment day of the Lord comes? Oh, I don't believe that anyways. Oh, well, at one point in time, people didn't believe that the earth was round either. And So that's one thing too. When people don't believe in electricity at a certain time, it was invisible. I can't grab it. I can't use it. What is this electricity? Well, that's what the early 1900 scientists were debating about this. What the Chinese call the qi. I forgot their terminology, what they use there right now. But they were looking for that as well too, and they couldn't find it. The life force, the early scientists, right? Not only that, but they were even denying the atom. They did not even believe the Greeks. That's why they worshiped the Greeks. I was saying in the other video, because that idea, they said it came from the Greeks, but it didn't come from the Greeks. The Bhagavad Gita mentions the atoms 5,000, at least 2,500 years after the Greeks were. Then then the Greeks came up. That's the time, right? You got the Indians here, and then the Greeks. But either way, man, he didn't know in 1900s. He was still speculating if there was an atom too. He just didn't. He just like, I don't believe these Greeks, and then he found it. So even then too, he doesn't realize that some things in creation, even though they're not seen to him at first, like God, like atoms, like, oh, what the hell were those? They don't believe. That's why in the Quran, those are the parables about the prophets. We sent you the prophets. You didn't believe. That's basically what the Quran is about. You want to know a long story short about that book? It's basically the judgment day of the Lord. Believe in Jesus Christ. If you're not, you're going to hell. And there's a whole bunch of parables as well about we sent you the prophets and you guys didn't believe. That's what the whole Quran's about in basically 3 sentences. You don't believe. See, that's why the feature of life, I'm trying to say, even though people, like really smart guys that lots of money, they don't believe anyways. It doesn't matter because electricity still existed at one point, even though man didn't believe. Even though the geniuses in the early 1900s, they didn't believe in the atom, but they found it. And then what happens when Jesus Christ comes back again? See, this is really unbelievable as well. But that's the Lord too. He says in book 2 of Ezra, I'm going to shock the world. And when the master comes back, just like the way he went up, people are going to go, die, die, die. Maybe I should have believed. Well, you had so much time here, on earth, walking around 20, 30, 40 years in contaminated consciousness. Maybe I should have believed. Well, if you don't want to be those guys, see, in Confucius, you just have to stand in the righteousness. You just have to stand in the right way. In this right way, in this spiritual age, you just have to believe in Jesus Christ. And even, this is what Bhagavad Gita says, even the unintelligible class has a chance if they just believe in the Supreme Personality of Godhead's name. Because the Lord created by grace, this is by our grace, the universe by the Word. So if people believe, it even says in Scripture, I should have been more, maybe in another video, I'll pop that up. He even says for just people that believe in my name. Because that's also fulfilling the Bhagavad Gita and the unintelligible class of individuals. If they just believe in his name because they're unintelligible and they can't pursue Scripture knowledgeably, if they just believe in his name, they'll be saved. This is why this Scripture is Bhagavad Gita and the Bible. See, it's the Indian Bible, and then you got the Jewish Bible here or whatever, right? But it's not any racial Bible. It's effing God. The Supreme Personality of Godhead gave the Bhagavad Gita. And the Spirit of God, through Abraham and the Jewish race, built this. This is also the transcendental super soul. This isn't any human beings in between these pages. This is all the transcendental activities of the Spirit of God raising up his holy nation through the seed of Abraham. This is all transcendental doctrine, but the human being thinks it's whatever the hell he thinks it is. Remember, the Lord raised up his seed in Abraham. So we'll go by prayer now. So the misguided materialists, all the atheists out there don't know that this very body is impermanent and that the attractions of home, land, and wealth, which are the relationship to that body, are also temporary. out of ignorance only, he thinks that everything is permanent, see? The living entity in whatever species of life he appears, usually just a human being, because he loves the 9 gates, the 2 soldiers, and the infantry, the 2 legs. You see, that's suitable for the soul to incarnate in this body. It loves, preferably, Bhagavad Gita says, see, this is more mystical. It prefers more of a demigod or a human being. And I had no idea you could even friggin' choose. That's how ignorant some people are. So anyways, the conditioned living entity is satisfied by his own particular race. He feels little inclined to cast off his body, even when in hell, for he takes delight in these sinful enjoyments and hellish attachments. Such satisfaction with one's standard of living is due to deep-rooted affection or attraction for the body, wife, home, children, animals, wealth, and friends. See all the things that you love in this world and you're attached to? That creates deep-rooted bondage for the body. And such satisfaction with one's standard of living in that way gets them off into the gates of hell, actually. That's because the living conditioned entity hasn't loved the Lord thy God. That's not in his forefront. He loves the Lord thy body, the Lord thy wife, the Lord thy home, children, animals, and wealth and friends. So that's what religion doesn't teach. That's why the second commandment's very bewildering to the living entities, because they're loving all these things that will in turn destroy him. Because those are all impermanent things of this world. Loving thy neighbor means you lifted up a certain measure of God consciousness, and God is the only love. So let's say if the living entity starts feeling love for his family, he has to impersonalize and say God is the only love. So the love that I'm feeling is coming from God. See, these eyes, they have to be transformed in lifting up the Son of Man and realizing that I am He, and God is the only love. So if you look out of your 2 eyes and you start feeling love and affection for your family, this is what the prayer is for, is impersonalize immediately and say, this love that I'm feeling is God's love, and this is the expression of spiritual activity. These aren't human beings anymore. This is what you call spiritual activity now. Well, hello, Jessica, for the Church of Jesus Christ, probably one of the only members. Thanks for coming by. As I was explaining, see, if the living entities develop attachments to each other like friends, and they love each other more than they love God, then they're going to lose their friendship, because God is the root. God is the root of all. That's why it says that in the new 10 commandments that these pathetic earthlings have made for themselves is to take responsibility and realize that everything's interconnected. Well, those are half-truths. First thing, nobody's connected to each other. You're not connected unless you lift up the Son of God, and then you belong in spiritual consciousness. Other than that, people just have connections only with economic advancement and just situated themselves into getting things off of each other, even relationships with men and women of all kinds. It doesn't matter. If you're not connected to each other, what you have is just dark consciousness, human ideas, and that doesn't connect you to nothing. The real connection, that's why these 10 commandments are foolishness by man, and he should just, stop doing idolatry. That might help too, is not walk around like a Michael Tessarian. See, he's one of the guys on the forefront of these truth movements, and I don't think he went all the way. You know what I mean? He didn't go all the way. He's still stuck in human consciousness a little bit, but he believes in God and stuff like that. But he doesn't love these religions. So at the first time, you're going to hear man talk crap about religion, and that's also a truth too, because the priestcraft is no good. So this guy is a master of symbolism and telling us that the origins of evil. He's a very good someone to get into if you're interested in understanding the origins of evil and how this evil cropped up in humanity. Michael Tessarian is his name. He's a great speaker. He's been doing this for about a long time, but people, I think even we get caught in this sometimes. We like the smell of our own farts. And when you just get involved too much in your own knowledge, that's when even I had to drop away and just strictly get into the scriptures. And every day, you have to wake up and in prayer and realize that, yeah, I'm in the infinite invisible, which means every day is every day is like the same, but it's challenging every day because you got to live by those scriptures. You don't have no choice anymore. You don't choose how you want to live under this way. That's why it's being a surrendered soul. That's why it might be difficult for people to do, because they don't want to surrender their own way of life. But he's a fantastic speaker about symbols. And these guys making 10 commandments, right? The Pope is a living symbol of an ancient god, because this hat that he wears on his head is a fish symbol. And it's an ancient fish symbol of this god named Dagon. And you could learn things like this in symbolism from his teaching, which is true. All of these things that they take from were not given to them by God, especially the priestcraft. Scripture didn't. They didn't do any of these things. When Jesus, this is now the new teaching. This is what Brother Paul. That's why the Spirit of God went upon him. Okay, it's very important, this story. The reason why Paul was transformed is because he was going around following the rules of the Jews at the time. And they were persecuting this new way that was preached to them by their forefather God through Jesus Christ. And he was persecuting anybody that believed in this quote-unquote new way that their forefathers didn't give up. And it's like that now too. This church, especially the Catholic Church, with all of its symbolic, the guys up there, they're so clothed in idolatry, it's just disgusting. And they're kissing statues, and they don't. Well, I don't know if they know what they are a symbol of, but this priestcraft and their symbology came from another ancient time. Let's put it that way, and it didn't come from God. God doesn't operate. That's the second commandment. No idolatry. No symbols that resemble heaven or earth. That's why there is no symbols in God's religion. Jesus Christ didn't give you a symbol. He gave you empowerment to become sons of God. He didn't give you a cross and some holy water. He gave you the gospels, the doctrine. So again, God's religion doesn't come with symbols and all this nonsense. That's why his teaching is, if you're interested in where do these things come from, man's a fornicating, disgusting animal that's been lowered, and especially in this day, lowered down to worse than a pig and a dog, because it will fornicate with anything. You don't even see animals doing that these days anyways, never have. But in this, and even in ancient times, it's even worse, because these people they controlled the ancient world then, and you know how business and corporations control it now? They don't. The people that has always controlled the world have controlled the friggin' world. They don't just give up their power because we're just advanced in civilization, and oh yeah, really. No one gives up nothing. If you ever noticed that, if you ever played a video game and you're fighting with someone and no one's going to give up playing a stupid video game, let alone if they have control of the world. They're just going to give it. Yeah, that's the illusion. That's why Century of Self, Adam Curtis, this whole society has been propped up by quote-unquote business. But that's also the false illusion that business is power. It's not. It's these freaking idiots walking around with crosses and stupid funny hats on their faces. That's the power that's why the Lord in Revelations is going to come down and throw this harlot that it called old Babylon. This old system of Babylon, this old whore still exists, and that whore is the Catholic Church. It's called the Roman Catholic Empire Church. Who the hell has empire? I mean, that is the whore of Babylon. And Jesus Christ's mission again on his second coming is to take whoever fornicated with this whore of Babylon, which is the whole world, he says, has been fornicating about with this ancient whore. And his second coming is to destroy all of this. And for the ones that believe, that's the rapture of the church when he gives you the transcendental stone. You're taken out of this nonsense before the hot, fiery wrath gets poured upon this earth. This earth has been, that's what Michael Tessarian's work is about too. He doesn't realize, but he's just, that ancient evil that he's talking about is the old whore of Babylon that's in Revelations. His work is all about that whore and its fornications amongst mankind, and how they just can't stop drinking the cups of her fornications. The blood of the saints, as it says also, she's sipping on the blood of people like myself, you see. And we don't like that. I don't like that. That's why the Lord gave me the Wallace in life. He said, listen, you can sit there and die in a corner, or you can have faith in me. That's why 20 years of listening to these people, I had to have faith. I didn't really realize what I was getting. See, the Lord works like a ninja, a thief in the night. I don't know what I was doing with my life, but the Lord was guiding me, making me listen to these freaking people. I didn't know at the time because I was very interested, especially in Michael Tessarian's work, finding the truth out there. He was full of it, and then it led to more people. It led to more people, and then after you get out of that, then I got into like Rudolf Steiner's. Then you start getting into the heavy hitters. So the heavy hitters about spiritual knowledge, there's 3 people in this entire world: Rudolf Steiner, Joseph Benner, and Joel Goldsmith. That's it. And everybody else has their own version of whatever. Even Michael Tessarian, he doesn't have the full truth because he doesn't fully believe in Jesus Christ because of his own nonsense about the church. That's one thing too. He believes more about his pagan roots, his Irish origins. Doesn't cut it. You didn't lift up the Son of Man, and that's, God mostly cares about that. I know people are honest and they're trying to really seek God, but so was I. That's why I listened to people like Michael Tessarian first and saying religion was bullshit, which it is, but this isn't bullshit. Man didn't make this. That's also what he's saying and concocting, that Emperor Nero or Constantine, he's the one that disseminated these Bibles. But no, what those idiots had was a compilation of God's work, and the guys were like, oh, we don't need this, we don't need that, because they understood. Those freaking people understood everything, okay? They were given all the things that I know, and they're the ones that disseminated it and made people ignorant over time, and gave the priestcrafts, because Rome was falling. Rome was falling. So we need to keep our power, guys. How do we do it? Oh, this looks like a good idea. We could call ourselves the Roman Catholic Empire. No one will ever know. Nobody will ever know, too. Oh, the empire's fallen. How the hell are we going to funnel all of our riches into something and keep our power, you see? How could the Roman Empire keep their power? Oh, they did. Oh, they did all right. And they still do. The Roman Empire still exists. Very powerful today, actually. The effing church owns like the world. So I don't know how business does, because the land that they're on is owned by these fools first. People don't understand, dog. It ain't by these people that fucking have banks and shit, because the land that they're on is owned by these scoundrels who came over here when the founding fathers were and set up. Who do you think came over here with England? Why did the freaking church come over here with them? Why? That's when the human being sounds like a seal out of water. Because these people control the world. And they set up shop in Canada and destroyed all the natives. Yes. And then, our government allowed them to do... Yeah, no. These people control the world. They always have and they always will. The land that you're on is owned by these effing people. Yeah, you might be paying taxes to some asshole in Canada, but guess who crawled over on that ship and helped destroy the people that were living on this land? So I'll call it quits for now, because that's another truth too I didn't get into scripture as well. It's more about truth of how these institutions are in utter darkness, and so are the people that belong to them. That's why the Lord tells you not to go to synagogues and pray. And that's why some people still don't lift up spiritual consciousness, because they like to smell their own farts. You can't be like that. You got to surrender, give up to absolute truth and knowledge, or else you fail. That's the whole basis of this work. 2 Corinthians 13, verse 5. Test yourself, see if you got the faith. You know that Jesus Christ is in the midst of you? If not, then you believe in man still. So you have to cease ye from man whose breath is in his nostrils at some point as well too. All these other teachers, all these other guys, I got to throw them all away. Why? Because I still didn't have God realization. That's why. So all of them were useless anyways. You have to think like that too. If all these people you learned from, you didn't get nothing out of it, then your endeavors are a waste of time. Lucky for me, I had faith. So they weren't a complete waste of time. But you're going to have to throw everybody out too. Even my teachers. Doesn't, whoever you learn, it doesn't matter. If you don't cut the mustard, 2:13's Corinthians. If you don't cut it, you don't cut it. It's just like playing sports. I don't watch sports because I like to play. I'd rather have God contact than to listen to some other idiot talk about God and his life. Ain't gonna cut it, dog. You gotta get it yourself. So I hope this has been a little helpful to the entities. I'm gonna try to read more scripture. I don't want to make these videos too long, but thanks for tuning in and take care.